Good. I think we're live. Welcome everyone back to another virtual freeCodeCamp meetup, coming to you live from somewhere in Bonn-am-Gebirge and somewhere in Vienna via the big interwebs. This is amazing. So, just gonna check again, as always, that we are live, just to cover my OCD and so I can share the links in the chat with you guys. We are live on YouTube. We are live on Twitch. If you prefer either or of those, feel free to go where you want to go. Let me just put the comments, the links in our comments. For those of you who are unaware, who just stumble into this for whatever reason, this is a meetup that normally happens live when there's no corona and those kind of things. And it happens in the city of Vienna. Direct streaming links. So with me, my name is Robert. With me today I have Vlad. Hello, Vlad.
Hello, everybody.
And let me do this. So, I don't know how many we have with us. I think 2. I see at least. Maybe we'll have more coming. We already have a comment from Jim Lauransson. Hi, Jim. Thanks, or not Jim, J.M. Lawrenson. Thank you very much for joining. For those of you, maybe tiny bit of context. So we are normally a local meetup group. Now we have our second virtual meetup. We'd like to give you guys a chance to at least connect with us and stay connected with fellow freeCodeCamp students locally around Austria. Of course, if you are watching this worldwide, feel free to join and listen in. Yes. freeCodeCamp is a worldwide, for those of you who don't know, a worldwide open learning platform to learn to code with a big curriculum and course material and a huge community of, last time I checked, maybe 2.5 million members. There's an active chat room. There are these types of local meetups and study groups worldwide, all around the world. Many thousands, I think, at this point, including me, have used mainly freeCodeCamp to learn on your own to code and to get my first developer job. We'll be talking a little bit about that today. And if you're here and you don't know about freeCodeCamp, feel free to still be here. You don't have to be a student to be here and also to benefit from this. Feel free at any time to post any questions you might have in the chat. We also today have a help desk edition, meaning we've done this a couple of times in the past in physical location where you bring your laptop. Maybe you have something you want help with. Today we're trying it online the first time. We got no pre-submitted questions, so we're trying to see how this works out online, which means that for those of you online listening in, feel free to at any point post in the chat anything you want help with. It can be some code that you want to share, a code pan, a repo, something where we can have a look and give you help, be it feedback or suggestions. And it can also just something to showcase. It can also be something from the freecodecamp.org curriculum that you're struggling with. Maybe you want us to go through an exercise that you're stuck on. Anything code related. So just anything goes. Feel free to ask and we'll answer as best as we can. So Anna as well is saying, thank you for such a great opportunity to meet online. Thanks for joining, Anna. Very nice to have you with us. So we do have a main sponsor, which is covering my time spending hosting this meetup and organizing it. They also normally provide the space that we are in, which we are not in today. And when we are in a nice space, they always offer drinks and food. They are hiring as always. I work there personally, so feel free to ask me any questions. Jobs are almost always available in terms of front-end developer, which is JavaScript and framework heavy, React, Angular, and also Vue. Backend, Java is the main language there. Operations, project management, business analyst, a whole multitude of roles. So feel free to have a look if you are looking for a job. Before we go into something else, because we'll start with a little bit of a chat first today. But first, we want to mention that in June, we are planning to experiment with our very first Code Wars. And it's an idea that I give all credit to Vlad for. So maybe you want to give some, say some words about this awesome thing.
Yeah, so Code Wars, I couldn't pinpoint exactly what triggered the idea, but our talk about frameworks and me, for example, being curious about Vue, which I know that you like, and you also host the Vue.js meetup in Vienna. I think that kind of made me wonder what's a really good prototyping framework. And I know that the one that I favor, Oracle Apex, is, from my point of view, very useful when you have when somebody has an idea. It doesn't have to be a customer's idea. It can be one of your ideas. But the fact that you can very quickly get from idea to something palpable, visible, I find it very valuable. And so I thought, but then there's Vue, and then I know there is React and so many others. And I thought, I'm sure there are some strengths and weaknesses. What if we could together figure out what those are and have some fun with it while doing it, right? That's kind of the idea behind Code Wars. So basically taking a project, and we have different developers using different frameworks or whatever paradigms, and they're trying to reach more or less the same goal. It's like a race, but like a friendly match.
Yeah.
A friendly football match.
What we'll try to do is, because we're anticipating this to take more than the time span of one online meetup, is that we'll do tentatively, we'll get back to the actual details, 1 hour next time in June. And then we'll follow up in July. We'll also have a program of Code Wars, and then we'll continue on another hour, and then we'll see if we finish what we set out to create. So it's an experiment for all of us, and yeah, I think it'll be fun. And then we can continue on if it's a success with anything from, a tournament style or completely new React versus Angular next time, and something like this. So it would be nice to plain vanilla JavaScript versus Phoenix and Elixir and anything.
Sounds
good stuff. Yeah. So the introduction is now. We thought we'd just talk at least, I think we have 10 minutes about, or maybe less, depends, me and Vlad, about, since we have no talk today, we thought we'd try to fill the time with a bit of a mix. Keep in mind, we have the help desk today, so if you have any questions, post them in the chat already and we'll get back to them. So we thought we'd discuss learning to code, what's the best way. And then we have the help desk. And again, for those of you who just joined, the help desk just means that if you know what freeCodeCamp is, if you're working on the curriculum there, let us know if you're struggling with something and we'll help. If you don't know what freeCodeCamp is, but you're interested in coding, you have any struggles, or maybe you haven't even started yet and you want to know what's the best way to start, any question on this topic, we'll help and answer. So feel free to post your questions in the chat at any time and we'll get to them. As Vlad touched on, I also organize 2 other meetups that are supported by EBCONT. I also organize Vienna.js, which is more independent and happening at Stockwerk normally, but now has a break because of the COVID-19 time. That's Vue.js Vienna and the Golang Vienna Go meetup, so keep those in mind. There would be a Golang next week, but because we didn't have a speaker, we're coming back strong in June with a fuller program. We already have a speaker lined up for that one. Good. Something we always mention, it's not so relevant now in the times of online meetups, but we are always open for talks. So we need a talk already we could even fit a talk into the June meetup, but I think earliest now we'll probably have a talk again in September. So also in terms of study groups, it's easier than ever to get together with co-students online. So if you'd like to set up something and help us host something that goes regularly, for example, every Tuesday, every other Sunday, something where people can get together and just help each other out, we are always open to support. I've always said that I can support and get the ball rolling, but I cannot necessarily show up every time. I have all of the other meetups that I'm focusing my time and energy on. We normally share drinks and food, so today we can only offer the virtual drinks and food. Good. So, Vlad, in your experience, maybe a bit about your journey and how have you attempted or learned to code?
Right. Well, I remember after quite a bit of research of what the right language would be to start with, and the main contenders were Python and JavaScript. I landed upon JavaScript, and funnily enough, I had not found FreeCodeCamp yet. And what I did start with right in the beginning, because I had a friend who offered me a Skillshare account, I used Skillshare to start one of the numerous offers, one of the numerous classes in terms of learning JavaScript. And I did that, and I have to say it was quite engaging. Now, you could say it was because it was the first thing that I started with, and my motivation was still really high. But I have to say, I did that, and then later on, I came across FreeCodeCamp, and I did some FreeCodeCamp classes, and I had a chance to compare later on. And if I think about it, the fact that the Skillshare course was centered around one project, and kind of every new element that you learned about would add to that project, to the point where at the end of the project you would have a finished mini app. That was I think one of the exciting factors which kept me really interested in that approach to learning and to code. Whereas as far as I remember, FreeCodeCamp has a lot of like lessons, very well organized, very nicely, very how shall I say, like I think atomized would be a good word, but I can't think of another one. So it's just, it gives you the bare necessity for one element to make one step forward. But even though it has all of these, it doesn't add up exactly to a final big project. It has, I think, the big projects at the end once you gain a little bit of momentum, but that momentum is gained through kind of disjointed little classes. And that's one of the differences that people need to take into consideration when they think about what to start with. So you could start with something that in the end, after a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, will get you an application. Or you could start with these small parts which are unrelated. So it maybe depends on what type of learner you are. But yeah, well, what are your thoughts on that, Rob?
Yeah, I think it's such a subjective question as well, because it really depends on the person. And you can mix and match, which I think most people do. I also saw some people mention that, I think it was even Quincy Larson, the founder of FreeCodeCamp, that most people try to tend to have a lot of activity on FreeCodeCamp the first 3 months, and then they normally fall off, maybe have a quiet period, and for the ones that eventually didn't come back, they maybe stick for then longer, but a lot of people just fall off after that initial period. It could even be because they have, learned enough that they could apply for jobs, or it could also be that they never came back but found something like Udemy or Treehouse or Skillshare, you called it.
Skillshare,
yeah. Pluralsight. There's even much more now than when we started. Like there's Front-End Mastery and lots of good platforms. It sounds cool to have something like consistently to work towards, and then in the end you kind of like tie it all together. I find that freeCodeCamp does that in one way, in the terms that it's very. I felt it was very pedagogic in the way that it kind of gave me the tools I needed to eventually build upon and do more. Maybe more so with the algorithm challenges, because I felt like I wasn't just on my own. Left on my own to solve the complex algorithm stuff. It was like, I already know this kind of stuff because I learned it in the previous chapters and stuff like this. For me, maybe like just to tie in, I actually also started with Java when I was a teenager. Me and Daniel Deutsch, our other former co-organizer, gave his talk about learning to code. So we covered some of this. I can share the link in the comments maybe. And when I was, to make a long story short, when I was a child, I was really into computers. Everyone asked me in the class for help with computers, so I've been always been good with that. But I didn't really learn to program until I was like around 30 years old. Now I'm 35. And when I was a teenager or young teenager, I got a book, Learn Java in 21 Days. And I thought I was stupid because I read it. I eventually managed to make stuff happen on my screen. There was a hello world before I really knew that was a thing. And I felt stupid because I always in school just listened to the teacher and understood stuff. Or I listened, I absorbed it, and I understood it, and then it was mine. But with programming, the fact that I had to write out system out print line and then something, I felt stupid because I didn't understand how I could just write that and then that stuff happened on the screen. There must be some magic behind it. So I kind of like got some basics. I played on multiplayer online role-playing games before it was even a thing, via text, via Telnet. I still do actually, and there you eventually had to do a little bit of scripting, meaning learn about aliases, variables, and maybe even some if statements. And I knew these things before I even knew that what I knew was programming. Then, maybe a year or two before I started with freeCodeCamp, I did a 3-hour Python workshop on YouTube. It was really good. And I kind of learned the basics, and I was like, this is really cool. I make stuff happen. But I did not. I thought, okay, so this is nice. This is easy. When does the programming start? I was still stuck in this, like, but programming is so hard and it must be so advanced and for geniuses, that I got too hung up on that. So I kept that in mind when I started freeCodeCamp, and it was again like, yeah, variables, control statements, for loops. Okay, I make stuff, I make it happen, and then it was, but wait, this is what I learned in Python thing. So what's next? And there never came a next thing. It was more like apply what you've learned, which is the basics, and make great stuff. Of course, over time there comes mastery, and you go from being like a beginner learner to an intermediate, and you get your job, and then you go from junior to senior. But that's like with any skill. So just getting that part was really hard for me. And now I'm digressing a little bit, but it's all of this to say that we all have our journey. I think all of the tools work in a combination of timing and interest and passion and modality. So if you like Skillshare because you have something where it can keep you going, because maybe you're curious what you're going to make in the end, because you see it's always linking you towards something where you're ending up with a bigger like app or something. Maybe for some, for you, that's the way to go. I think freeCodeCamp has a lot to offer, especially if you combine it with the community part. But then I've also mainly used Udemy in terms of video courses. I really like to get some teachers. On Udemy, it's very diverse teachers. So you can have anywhere from someone that doesn't really speak so well or clearly, and content is so-so, to someone who's really a good communicator, and it shows that they really have a passion for this and do this for a living and have done so for a while. And I like to get the combination of some solid theory first, and then they go through lessons together on how to make something. But I know others, they prefer to break stuff and see why it breaks and make it happen, or just not really know anything, but just, I want to make this thing, and they're going to struggle, and then they're going to be so driven that they're just going to learn because I'm going to make this thing. So that's my long answer.
Okay, so I think you touched upon 2 points which I found really important. Number one is the fact that you said, about the quality of maybe communication or teaching for these online courses, like Udemy or Coursera or whatever, right? There's an infinity right now. So that's one element. If you choose to go that path, you risk struggling to find a high quality course. Whereas with FreeCodeCamp, you have a structured, proven, slowly also accepted, like officially accepted course, in the business world almost, right? Where you have people such as yourself or like Daniel who had their first job interview and also passed that job interview with their FreeCodeCamp curriculum, right? As a proof. I don't know if you can do that with a Coursera class. You could say like, oh, look, I finished this Coursera class, right? Because it's not as perhaps not as structured, because it's up to somebody, the person creating the course, to create the right structure and give you the right information. Whereas FreeCodeCamp, I think, attempts to be a little bit more comprehensive and make sure that they don't leave out any important information, which is why they start with HTML, CSS, and only then JavaScript, so on and so forth. So that's number one. And then the second thing that I realized is important is what you get at the end, right? Because at the end of the Coursera class, you have, I don't think, some of them might have, but some of them, I don't think they have like some kind of a proof that you finished the course, right? Because the courses are video courses, and you're kind of like listening to what the person is saying, and then you're trying to reproduce it. And maybe at the end, you have done everything that the person was trying to give you as a challenge. But there's no official way to prove it, except if you've done a proper GitHub and you have the app and you can show it, maybe, or yeah. Whereas with FreeCodeCamp, you have a literal diploma at certain milestones, right? The FreeCodeCamp, you have the diploma for front end and back end and so on and so forth. So the certificate. So it's important what motivates you, what kind of a learner you are, but also what you want to get out of it.
Yeah.
Just one last thing that I wanted to say, because I'm going to have to run, but you were saying about this kind of disconnect between you typing in print or console log and then it coming out and then being printed, but you were like, why is this happening? Why, when I console log something, it's showing up? And I've included in the private chat a link to a playlist, which I find very good, and it helped me enormously when I started learning, which is kind of understanding computers. It's called Understanding Computer Science, and it's done by PBS. And I really, really like the way it's structured and the way the information is presented. And it literally takes you from zero knowledge and brings you all the way through how transistors work and all the way to why code actually runs and why when you type console log, it actually comes out as whatever it is that you were trying to output.
Yeah, cool.
So yeah.
So for those of you who are watching, I think you can yeah, you can see the recording with the chat messages. But we shared some links now. I'm just putting it here just for the recording. So the talk that I mentioned and also Vlad mentioned is the link to here. You can also find it by just searching for FreeCodeCamp Self-Taught, and you'll find it. And then we also have the link that Vlad just mentioned. So understanding how computers work, that's for you here. So if you watch the recording, you can just pause and use it. Otherwise, it should be also in the chat. And then we talked about course instructors. I have a big recommendation for Max Schwarzmüller or Maximilian Schwarzmüller. All the courses by him are great. I haven't done them all myself, but I've done one on TypeScript, one on Vue, one more, I think, and he's getting rave reviews, and everyone I talk to is like, "You're on Udemy? Yeah, you know Max, right? Yeah." So he's really, people like him, and he has really good courses. So those are worth the money. One thing to know about Udemy is you will always get discounts. So if you go there and they tell you, hey, this costs 100 euros, just make an account, put it on your wish list, wait 1 day or max a couple of days, and they'll give you a discount. They always have weekly new discount codes, and you'll get them for 90% off or something like this. 80 to 90% off. So you shouldn't pay more than like 20 euros per course, normally like 10, 15 euros or dollars for a course there. Yes. Okay, Vlad. Thanks a lot for joining again today. And I know you have to jump into another call. So
yeah, I'm sorry about that. It's
no worries.
But this was a good talk, and I think it might be on people's minds since we all have maybe a little bit more time on our hands these days.
Yes,
so
for sure.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right.
Ciao. Bye-bye.
Thanks for having me, and take care, everybody. Stay safe.
Good. Well, not good, but now we'll continue on. You're still free to put in any questions in the comments. If Anna or JM are still there, and I see we have a couple of more with us. I can't see the names unless you write in the chat right now. We have no direct questions. I can maybe just add a couple of things to learning to code online, because I know that from experience that we often have a lot of beginners joining our meetups. I would honestly just recommend going to freecodecamp.org and starting the curriculum from scratch. You don't even start with programming if you don't know HTML, which is the sort of like the building stones to make something in the browser visually appear. That's HTML. And then also CSS, which is sort of like making it colorful or bigger or smaller, like styling it. That's CSS in a nutshell. And then you don't really get to the programming part before the second part. And then you get a really good, thorough introduction. I don't think there was no functional programming course when I did this. And if you start FreeCodeCamp and you feel like, hey, I already know this, I know some of this, and I really want to learn React, you can just skip ahead here and you can do this. You can start straight ahead on that point. The only thing to keep in mind that the certifications will have some certain criteria that you have to meet to be able to submit your final thing, so that you will be able to get your certificate. It's normally completing some lessons and also some projects and submitting a link to your project right there. Yeah, JM Lorentzon, thank you very much, Vlad. Big thanks to him. So I think I'll just take a drink. Cheers, everyone. And if we have no questions right now, I'll just start doing some exercises from freecodecamp.org. And also, if you are a FreeCodeCamp student, or if you are looking at the website now or with me, if there's anything that you would like us to cover directly, or like you would like more beginner stuff than advanced, then let me know in the chat, and I can also choose to work on something that is beneficial for you right now. Cool. So JM Lawrenson saying, I like freeCodeCamp a lot. He or she, I'm assuming a he, but I only see a picture. I only see, what's it called? Initials. So I don't want to assume. He or she has completed the responsive course on freeCodeCamp and recommends it as well. Which course would I recommend for learning PHP? I think my answer is I wouldn't recommend, not because PHP is not good, but because I really do not know PHP that well. I can maybe make a redirect or something and for loop, but that's it. So yeah, I would really just, my first choice would be to go to Udemy, look for a PHP course there. Also check how the official PHP documentation is. I think they're on version 7. I might be wrong. He's a French man. He has a project to transform to more dynamic, but without database. Ooh. It really depends. Tell us more, JM. What do you mean without database but dynamic? Do people need to be able to persist stuff? Meaning, if they make a change on the website, should it be the same change when they come back next time? It's a bit tricky thing, because not knowing more, you might make something where they can make it dynamic when they are in the website. But the problem is, next time they visit, most likely you cannot or you will not be able to control if they've cleared cookies, if they're in a different browser. So if you need to have some sort of like persistence, meaning storing stuff in between times they are visiting the page, you would probably have to look a bit about what options you have on that. Again, you're asking Python, PHP. It sounds to me like if it is in the web browser, maybe JavaScript, but maybe there's something that leads you to not want to use JavaScript. Anna Malishkina, sorry if I'm pronouncing it wrong, is asking, and what about Java? Is it a good language for the starter? With any of the main languages, I think you can never go wrong if you are learning to program. A lot of people learn Java in school, be it university or high school or college. The only thing to keep in mind about Java versus, for example, JavaScript is that the good benefits about learning JavaScript as your first language is you can make websites and more easily get a visual result from you programming something. With Java, you're most likely going to stare at a command line text output, at least in the beginning. And depending on, you can code a lot of stuff with Java, but it's normally used on the back end, maybe to, when the website needs to get content from the server, and maybe you are submitting a form or you're making a dynamic change with a database, like JM has talked about. Java is what goes on the server and sends you back what you need. So I would say maybe it's a bit drier to learn. So it depends on you. Like if you like the theoretical, if you like programming for programming's sake, and if you don't mind really what type of product you're working on or what type of the stack, meaning front end, what you see, and back end, what goes on the server. So really, in a nutshell, you can't go wrong with Java, but just keep in mind that that's the main distinction. It's not as sexy. Maybe that's the easy way to say it. There's tons of Java jobs out there. I have a feeling it's a little bit harder to break in as a junior in Java than in JavaScript, but that might be locally and more from what I hear from people. But in learning to code, no language is wrong, because what you've learned as the basics of programming in Java, you can then go and then you can skip ahead a bit in some things in JavaScript, because you don't need to be taught again what a for loop and a control statement is. So there are a lot of overlap. Yeah, long answer to a short question, but you can't go wrong. I would suggest JavaScript without knowing more about where you are right now and what your preferences are. So back to JM's question, and feel free to elaborate on your question, Anna, and follow up. JM is saying, I would like to make parts of the websites identical, like menus, but the content would change on each page. JavaScript attracts me because everything is in the browser. Ja. Good question. Or I know more about your question now in terms of you have a project to transform something to more dynamic, but without a database. For what you're describing, you don't need a database. You could probably do it with Python, with Golang, with Java, with JavaScript, with PHP, and others as well that I cannot think of, I'm sure. I would say JavaScript, because you're talking about making a web app or a website. You don't need to really think about dynamic for now, or at least a database for now. If you really just want content, you can make what is called a single page application, which is what most people do these days, is either that or a server side rendered, which basically is what we used to do in the old days. So what I didn't say earlier when we talked about learning to program is I learned to make websites long before I learned to program. I've known HTML for a long while. And just knowing HTML, you can actually make quite a bit. Maybe everything that you're talking about, you can make with just plain HTML. JavaScript comes in and it can either, based on your programming, generate the HTML for you so that you have, in the end, less to write and is more structured. Using a framework, I would definitely recommend. So I'm more knowledgeable with Vue. Vue.js is the framework I know the best, but I'd say maybe React. Go to freeCodeCamp.org. There's React courses there, and maybe React is the best fit for your job, because then you have something that is specialized in presenting content in the browser, which it sounds like you want to do, and you don't need to have a database unless you want like login. The user sees different things depending on what user they are, and if you want to frequently update the content. But if it stays the same, at least in the beginning, and if maybe it's just a one single page application with some sub pages and stuff, yeah. But PHP, Python with Flask also works. Okay. So JM is saying he's system administrator, but he's quite new to programming. Well, if you're doing, I guess you're doing some scripting at least as a system administrator. So pick whatever you're using there. If you're using Python for making some scripts, or is it that or Bash scripts, I guess. So if you're using Python, I would just go with Flask. You can probably make something and play around with something quickly. And it's also not so much more effort to learn JavaScript. There's so many courses, and yeah. No, you don't have to. He's saying, I was thinking at the beginning to include HTML files in HTML, but I think that's not in support anymore. Do you then mean iframe, since you have HTML in HTML, or do you just really just mean you're not sure if you should write .html files. Because it's HTML, is not going anywhere in terms of going away. You can definitely write HTML from scratch. It's not always what you would want to do, but depending on your use case, yeah, depends really your needs, on your needs. Cool. We're already covering a lot of ground here. I like the questions. Keep them coming. Anna is saying, thanks a lot. She has to go. Hope to see you all offline for sure. Feel free to leave any contact details in the comments of the recording afterwards. I don't know, Anna, if you're in the freeCodeCamp Meetup group. That's the one here. If you're anywhere in the world, you feel free to just search for freeCodeCamp Vienna in meetup.com, and you can join and you can leave a comment. I am available almost everywhere, but my Twitter handle is here. I'm also reliably always on Discord. So there's always an easy way to get in touch with me. So if you want to get some advice, just let me know. Yeah, cool, Jam. Yeah, you can't go wrong with JavaScript. And if it doesn't really feel like it's a good fit, then you have always other frameworks and programming languages to explore. Okay. I think I will have a look at maybe functional programming. Now, at any time, if this is because I haven't done this before, and why not? But I'm open to work on anything in the browser right now. I can also open up a CodePen, which is a really nice. Let me open up a new one. CodePen is a really nice place where you can just program in the browser. It was used, and I think it's still used in the browser in the freeCodeCamp curriculum. So feel free to have a look here if you would like to just play around and make something. And you don't need to install anything. You can just do it in your browser. And you can do stuff like this. For example, here you go. Or maybe we can make that padding instead. Yeah, so playing around with stuff, this is cool. Here you can make stuff. This is what you're learning in the freeCodeCamp curriculum. Stop me now, or maybe actually, what I'll do actually, because it doesn't make so much sense, I'll do one of these. So I'll go to the first lesson here. I'll do this. If it takes time, I'll stop. Then next, I think it makes sense because of the skill levels I've seen here, that will end with just going through the start of the responsive web design certificate. I will cover a couple of these basic ones to begin with, because that's really like if you don't know anything and you want to know where to start to learn, you can get a long way with just like a week of learning HTML, maybe not even, maybe a couple of days. You get a better feel for what goes into making a website. JavaScript is mainly just helping us generate the HTML and make it maybe dynamic, and CSS is there to make it shine and look really nice. But I said I'll have a look at the functional, so let's just have a look. And let's see what this is about. So this is how most of the, at least the coding, programming part of JavaScript, freeCodeCamp has a lesson part, and then you code some stuff, and then you check if your code passes the tests, meaning you have successfully made what or done what you should, and then you are then going on to the next part. Functional programming is a style of programming where solutions are simple, isolated functions without any side effects outside of the function scope. Theoretical and dry, let me know if anything is super confusing, which it might be if you don't know programming. Functional programming is about isolated functions. There is no dependency on the state of the program, which includes global variables that are subject to change. Pure functions. The same input always gives the same output. Functions with limited side effects or mutations to the state of the program outside the functions are carefully controlled. The members of freeCodeCamp happen to love T. In the code editor, the prepare T and get T functions are already defined for you. Prepare T, get T. Call the get T function to get 40 cups of tea for the team and store them in the T for team FCC variable. So I'm going to call this given a function representing the T type, the number of cups needed. The following function returns an array of strings, each representing a cup of a specific type of tea. Specific type. Teacups is an array for let cups one, so if cups is equal to or less than number of cups, where's number of cups is passed, we're gonna, okay, this is a for loop, const t equals prepare tea, green tea. Tea cups push tea, tea, tea. So I'm just gonna call tea with 40. Is that what they want? And store them in the, okay. Woo! So what we did now was that we said that T for CMC should be a variable that has 40 cups of tea. And const, you can also do var variable, which is easier. You don't have to learn about the newest features of JavaScript. So the name of the variable is T for team for FCC. It equals get T, which is a function, but takes 40. It builds up an array. In the beginning, the teacups array, this is just the syntax for making an array, is empty. We have a for loop. This is a bit complicated and we'll not cover all of this now, but it basically says that we're started at 1. As long as cups, which now is 1, is less than or equal to number of cups, which is what we passed here, which is 40 in our case. So as long as it's less than or equal to 40, then we're going to do this. And afterwards, we're going to increment it by 1. So next time, it's going to do this again with 2, and then with 3, and it's going to keep incrementing it with 1, and do it again and again and again, as long as this criteria is true. So as long as it's less than or equal to number of cups, and then it stops, and then it does this. Not before this loop has run as many times as it should will it do this, and then it will do this, meaning what we're doing here is every time we're running through this loop, it says in this array, put teacup is prepared tea is green tea. So it's just going to add. The array is a data structure you can learn about. It's basic stuff, but if you haven't learned about it, just know that it's a thing. This is storing, so this is keeping. Then in our case, it's adding. It will become, first time it becomes like this, green tea. Then it does the push again, and then it just knows from, because that's its job, to do it again. And then it's going to add green tea again. And again, and again, and again. And maybe it now still works if I do this. Yes, but that's not what we were supposed to do. So now I cheated by giving it 37 because I knew that if I give it initially 3, it's gonna in the end be 40, but that's not what we wanted to do. Good, cool. So you get the feeling, and this is complicated stuff if you're a beginner, so it starts out much simpler, just so you know. But let's have a look here. This is cool stuff. So introduction to basic HTML and HTML5. HTML, or hypertext markup language, is a markup language used to describe the structure of a web page. It uses a special syntax or notation to organize and give information about the page to the browser. Elements usually have opening and closing tags that surround and give meanings to content. For example, there are different tag options to place around text to show whether it is a heading, a paragraph, or a list. For example, opening tag, closing tag. Top level heading may be a page title. This becomes top level heading may be a page title. This is a paragraph. This is an ordered list. This is a list item. Then it knows that it should order them like this, just from having this syntax with the, what do we call them? Elements, opening and closing tags. Okay, so let's go to the first lesson. And now we see already here, it is H1, hello, H1, opening and closing. And we get hello. If we change this to H2, it's smaller. If we change this to H5, it's even smaller. So it starts from the highest size with H1 and it goes down. Welcome to freeCodeCamp's HTML coding challenges. These will walk through web development step by step. First, you'll start by building a simple web page using HTML. You can edit code in your code editor, which is embedded into this web page. Do you see the code in your code editor that says H1, hello, H1? That's an HTML element. Most HTML elements have an opening tag and a closing tag. Opening tags look like this and closing tags look like this. The only difference is the /. So as we saw before, we have tests. So now to pass test on this challenge, change your H1 element's text to say hello world. So if I would do this now, it says you should have the text hello world. It did not, we did not successfully complete this. So it says I should write hello world. Now I run the test and we did it. Now we have an assignment that we should say, we should add an H2 tag. That's cat photo app. And we passed. You can support, which you should if you have the money to spare and you would like to support the free and open source platform. And then now we're gonna create a p element and we'll give it the text hello paragraph. Stuff. Replace the text inside your p element with the first words of this kitty ipsum text. With the first few words. Okay. Woohoo! And all the while you learn stuff, so you should if it's new to you, you should read this stuff. But I'm skipping a bit ahead for the sake of demonstration together with you. On a comment, your h1, h2, and p elements. So what happens now is nothing appears here, right? Because this is commented out. I can do this, and then all of this is commented out. This is syntax, meaning the recipe for commenting stuff out or making a comment in HTML. I can uncomment all of this. And then I can, for example, conveniently say that just for us developers, for us programmers, we can say, this is our very useful text. Do not delete. And it should still pass because I have commented out. Oh no, I have only made a comment here that is relevant. Maybe it should give a description about what's happening here, but it does not get displayed here. So that's it. I will shortly end this call and this meetup. We've gone almost an hour, which is amazing. We have people still watching, and I hope this was helpful. But yeah, you can see later on you will end up making something cool like this with photos and all sorts of fun stuff. Feel free to join us. We are on Twitter. We are also on Facebook. We did start as a Facebook group because that's how FreeCodeCamp had its local groups organization, let's call it, in the beginning, but we're not really active there. On Facebook, groups, we are here as freeCodeCamp Vienna. Of course, this is from my mom. As you see, when you're on Facebook these days, it's not your friends, it's your older relatives that keep dominating, which is fun. So you can also join here. We're not so active, but yeah. JM has switched to Twitch. You don't have to be sorry. Twitch is awesome. So yeah. And we didn't touch on that in the beginning. I'm still have this linked to my personal YouTube and Twitch because for YouTube, I have to get a new phone or a new phone number to be able to verify more channels. I don't have any Meetup channel for this one that is approved for live streaming. So unfortunately, I cannot do this via there. But I think this is more than fine enough for now. The most important is that we can reach you all via the interwebs. Yeah, and of course, even if you're not locally in Vienna or Austria, we'll keep having virtual meetups. Feel free to join our meetup group on meetup.com. Look for freeCodeCamp Vienna and join us. That would be awesome. And reach out to me. The easiest probably is either via comment or contacting me via message on meetup.com. The second most easy is probably Twitter. I can show you my own personal Twitter handle, which is Rob Axelsen. Send me a direct message if you want to get in contact. James is saying, thanks a lot for your time. We'll definitely join again. I might also be interested to know more about your company. Yeah, sure, Jam. Just anytime. Just let me know. I can answer your questions, and you can also just send me your resume if you want, and I can help you out. It was working very fine. Good stuff. Then, without further ado, please join us again next time, and it was a pleasure to be here with you. I will gladly do a help desk again. This was nice. There was not that many people, but the ones that were here were very active, and it's very nice to see. Yeah, so with that, I think I'm signing off. Thanks for joining, and stay safe, stay healthy, and have a nice upcoming weekend. Take care. Bye-bye.